Welcome. Hello, everybody. And
Hi.
this is our third session with Gilli and Lara, and we're going to be talking about identity and belonging this time of one of the hundreds of topics we could talk about. So we thought this is an important one. We've shared already some of the things about um, reunion, we've talked about the research and what we know about adoption, and this feels like a really significant piece for us. So, in terms of identity, then, there's lots, isn't there? There's lots about thinking, well, who am I? And what does that mean? How do we know who we are? What is our identity? And so a lot of it in a birth family is about, well, first of all, I look like these people. Or even if I don't look exactly like mum or dad, I can see my nose in my auntie, or I can see my hair in my grandma, or, we can see aspects of self in amongst the family. And the build might be the same. And so that general appearance stuff is the first thing. We can't see ourselves in anybody's faces, and we can't hear our voice in anybody's voice. We don't sound like them either. So they're the core immediates, aren't they? I don't look like anybody, I don't sound like anybody. And then, of course, there's all the blood and the genetics, because not only do we not like any of these family, but we don't know what's in our blood either. We don't know what biological illnesses there might be. We don't know what we might be prone towards. I found out at, what was I, 46, that, there's high cholesterol and there's, this kind of issue in my blood that I didn't know about before. So just knowing what our biology might hold for us. And we know that one, we go to the doctors and they say, are you allergic to this? Have you had any incidents of this in your family? And we go, I don't know, I'm adopted. Um, so that's really missing pieces that are another message we get that you don't know who you are. You've only got to fill a form in to realise there's stuff I don't know about me. And that clunks you on the head every time you have to fill a form in, basically, doesn't it? Or a
Yeah.
medical. So there's all that. And not only the genetic history, but the backstory. And I know it's a big thing right now, isn't it, to do ancestry, to do this chasing, there's all these programs on the TV, who do you think you are? And I don't know about you guys, but I never had any inclination to find out about the ancestors because they weren't mine. I wasn't interested in the family tree. Why would I be? It's not mine. I wasn't interested in any of that stuff. So we haven't got the backstory, which is the things like, oh yeah, your granddad was in World War II and he was a hero, or, grandma worked for the WI and did this, that, and the other. We don't even know their stories and the kind of people they were. And so there's none of that to reference in conversation with others. Other things are, that we also get our adopted families' location identity. And by that, I mean all my families were from the Northumberland. They were all Geordies. My dad supported Newcastle United. They all had a Geordie accent. And so they were very attached to that area. And I am, because that's where, my gran was, that's where love was. But I wasn't from there, because I was born in Birmingham.
Yeah.
So I had a different identity. I wasn't a Geordie, but they were, and so I'm like, oh, and for a long time, I didn't know where I was born. So that was just a hole. There was a location hole. You could say I'm English, but beyond that, that's all a bit
Yeah.
sketchy, because people are really
Yeah.
proud of their roots, aren't they?
Mm.
I'm from Yorkshire, me, and
Yeah.
there's a big pride, or,
Yeah.
you know, I'm a Londoner, and people really love that of where they're from.
Mm.
And I didn't have that either. So
Mm.
that's another hole in, well, who are you?
Yeah.
Because almost the first thing we say to people at parties is, isn't it? Oh, I'm from here, and it's who I am. I present that as part of who I am. And heaven knows what it must be like for folks who are from other countries.
Mm.
If I'm actually from Jamaica, or,
Mm.
I'm from the East, and I don't even look like anybody, that's even worse, you know.
Mm.
And other things that occurred to me was there were things about myself that I knew that weren't reflected in my adoptive family. That I'm a
Yeah.
madly passionate animal lover,
Yeah.
and none of my adoptive family were at all. Turns out
Yeah.
my birth family are, but that didn't link. So that identity felt wrong and didn't fit. And then there were things I found out, like things like natural talents. I didn't know what skills or maybe natural aptitudes might be in my blood. So I didn't really try anything. And then if I find out at 46 that my birth mother was an artist.
Mm.
So of course, if I'd known that, that might have been a skill that might have been developed and practiced and brought out in me earlier. But that's another thing we might say about ourselves. I was brought up here. I'm from there. I do art. Turns out my birth father's family were all musical. And can read. My birth father could play a music by ear. He didn't even need notes. And so, had I known about that, that might have been more developed. So that those natural aptitudes and things, I think, are
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah.
And the way the body operates. Like I've always been a really painfully slow eater. I cannot eat quickly; it would make me sick. I just can't do it. I have to eat painfully slowly. So my birth family, they're slow eaters.
Mm.
But my adoptive family were very fast eaters.
Mm.
So it was like, that doesn't fit either. So there's the digestion system. There's what we might suffer from. Do we get migraines? Whereas people like say, oh, yeah, all our family have migraines. All of our family have a bad reaction to wasp stings or whatever, but you don't know that either. So there's a huge hole for me in who am I in terms of what I sound like, what I look like. How about you?
Yeah, 100%. There are so many blank pages, aren't there? And sometimes literal blank pages, like you said, when you go to the GP and it's like, what's your medical history? And you just don't know. And you just sort of get to the point where you're just kind of, well, I just don't know. And you just keep saying it. But it's about how that feels, isn't it? And all these gaps that
Yeah.
you're talking about and the blank pages. And what we call genetic mirroring is not available to us. So we're not looking at the people around us and seeing ourselves reflected in them, not only how we are now, but also what we might become. That's
Yes.
completely, that's completely unavailable to us. And then you were talking about sort of cross-cultural and sort of transnational adoption and things like that. And yeah, I mean, you've got the sort of the genetic mirroring in terms of our skin color and things like that. But there's such a loss and a rupture to culture and spiritual beliefs. And
Yes.
there's
Yes.
so much, the value systems and the belief systems that might be sort of the way that our natural kind of backdrop would have evolved that we just don't have access to. So there's so
Yeah.
much, isn't there, in that? I mean, I think the issue is there's all of this. And for me, and I think about this a lot, but it's it's not just that kind of that's there and that's playing out every single day of our lives from the
Mm.
moment that we're aware of
Yes.
from the moment that we're conscious. It's that nobody can see that we're going through that. And I think that's what can make it feel so isolating and so lonely.
Yeah.
Is because we know that the sort of adoption narrative, we know what what most people think or say about that, slowly changing,
Yeah.
hopefully. Well, I think it is, but very slowly, but change is good. But I think that's what adds to the isolation, isn't it? Is because
Yes.
you don't know what your identity is. You're not seeing yourself mirrored in anybody around you. You don't know what your history is. You don't know what your ancestry looks like. And you can just feel really, really isolated in that. And I think that's what can sort of add to the initial layers of trauma from
Mm.
the original separation. And this is why I think it's just so complex, is that society doesn't see it, our families don't see it. This is the thing that, even in the cases where adoptive parents are trying their best and are able to give love, they still don't see it. And so, it's still a very, very difficult thing. And this was a big, big, big thing for me because you talk
Mm.
about bone structure and you talk about skin color and you talk about hair texture and eye color. I think it even extends to personality sometimes.
Mm.
I mean, you talk about natural skill. We don't know what those are because we're not being mirrored. Like you say, there's nobody around who's playing the piano or painting a picture. They might have a completely different genetic makeup. So there's no room for us to explore our own. And so the fact that, they are unaware and they're unaware of the issues. I think that's the biggest problem, is because there's no space for that conversation, there's no space for
Yeah.
that exploration. And so we just end up holding it all in, don't we? And that's
Mm,
why it can be so, so lonely. And like I say, even in a family where they're trying their best and are trying to give love and show up every day, it's still lonely, isn't it?
mm,
From that side, when you talk about identity, I mean,
absolutely.
identity is a huge, huge, huge topic. I mean, we said earlier there's some common threads, but everyone's story is different. Everyone's struggles with identity are different. And so, yeah, I mean, this is not just in the adopted community. Of course, people struggle with their identity outside
Yeah.
of our community.
Mm,
I think the difficulty and the added layers is that we have no access to it,
yes.
most cases.
Yeah.
And trying to get access to that is really, really difficult. And then sort of trying to connect with that is also really difficult. So you can
Yeah.
get all the information, but then it's like, well, I can't seem to somehow connect with that. I can't kind of, it doesn't, yeah, I'm struggling to feel part of that. And yet you don't feel part of this either. And
Yeah.
so don't you think that's
Definitely.
why it's so difficult? And our identity is so huge, and
Mm,
it's just a journey. I know there's some people hate that word, but I do think that for us it is a lifelong path because
yeah.
it's unfolding at
Mm,
different stages, and we're tackling different aspects of it at different stages and trying to make meaning out of different things
yeah.
in at different times in our lives. And so our awareness comes at different times through different people and different sets of circumstances. So it's just so big, isn't it, Gilly?
Yeah. Massive. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about, I mean, that leads on really well to this massive topic, identity and belonging. What do you think
Yeah.
about that? What have you got to say about belonging?
Just another thing occurred to me actually about identity,
Mm.
um,
Mm.
was that, and then of course there's the name change.
Oh, well, that's just the
You
biggest.
know,
I mean, I
whoa, that just only just occurred to me now as well.
Yeah,
Um,
no, and it's
yeah,
interesting that you say that because again, it's like you get your puppy and you give it a name.
yeah,
But I know I work with a lot of people who they don't connect to the name they've been given,
yeah,
and they don't actually can't quite reach the name they were born with because there's nothing available to them to try and connect with that. So yeah, you carry on, but
yeah.
name is huge, and that carries on through our lives as
Mm,
well, through marriage, through divorce. Whose surnames is just another surname I'm taking? Like, what's mine? Who am I? Do you know what I mean?
definitely.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I've
huge,
had
isn't
four names this lifetime. Not having another
it? Yeah.
flipping one. Yeah,
I feel like many of us have, Julie.
yeah. Um, but yeah, and I remember finding out my original name and finding
Yeah.
that quite freaky. Like, that's not my name.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
but I've really grown into it now to the
Yeah.
point where I actually treated myself to a private number plate.
Oh, get you.
So my private number plate now is my initials of my adopted name and my birth name. Because I've
Wow.
reclaimed my original identity in that, and it was a stance I took for me. So
Yeah.
that my original name was Penelope Jane Shakespeare. Get that?
Ooh,
Um,
how
so
lofty.
so on the number plate now is PJS. And I call the
Brilliant.
car PJ. Come on, PJ,
Brilliant.
we're off. And
But the
that's
thing
felt,
is that you've taken that time to get to that point where you know what your identity needs to be, right?
yeah, yeah.
And that's a process, isn't it?
And it took me ages to even want to, and it really felt quite a big thing to order that number plate. And
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
putting it out
sure.
into the world. This is who
Yeah,
I
this
am.
is who I am.
I
Because,
was this
well, we
and I'm this.
spend so many decades not quite understanding the answer to that question. It's a
Yeah,
massive milestone.
yeah. I've even thought about a tattoo. I haven't done
Okay,
it yet, but you know the
go
way
for
you get a
it.
label in the back of your clothes. I was
Yeah,
even kind of thinking I might have PJ Shakespeare, in
why
old-fashioned
not?
writing on the back of my
Why not?
neck. And
Yeah,
other people have, like I've got clients who have
yeah.
tattooed their original
Mm.
name,
Because it's
or
such a massive thing in
yeah,
it for us, and I can see why. Yeah,
that reclaiming of it
it
felt
is that.
really powerful.
Yeah,
And I think other people, I mean, I also use these things for passwords, mixed with other
yeah.
characters, I hasten to add. You know, just any way of reclaiming a piece
Mm.
of that identity, getting that number plate felt like a real
Mm.
I'm reclaiming me.
Yeah.
It felt
I
really
think this is
powerful.
the, one of the biggest um, areas that was starting to be more understood now, but was hugely understood was that, people took decisions that they felt was the right decision for the child. To what extent did they really go deep on what that loss of identity would do? And then that, there's the thing of all those decisions were taken for me, probably for the right reasons, who knows, not always, at the
Yeah.
time, but we didn't have any say in those decisions. So it was all stripped away from us.
Mm,
So the reclaiming bit that you're talking about is so crucial,
yeah. I think
isn't
it,
it?
it really helped me to know who I am. I'm
Yeah.
60 flipping three.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know I am now. It's taken a
Yeah.
lifetime,
Never
you
too
know.
late though, is it? Eh?
Yeah, but I've really got that now. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
reclaimed all those aspects that were lost.
I think it's amazing. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Well,
So anyway,
congratulations. Do you want me to start calling you Penelope Shakespeare now?
no. I quite like PJ, but I can't. I'm not sure I can quite go with the
Okay.
other bit. Yeah, there's two shades of Penelope pit stopping. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But Shakespeare's a great name though, isn't
for
it?
sure. And we're looking into that. Yeah,
Very good.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and those are just ways in which we don't belong, aren't they? All
Yes.
those elements we've spoken about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was thinking about belonging per se, and what do we mean by that?
Mm.
And it means we feel as if we fit, we feel
Mm-hmm.
as if we match.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of works like jigsaw pieces. And that might be that we look the same. So I know I belong because we look the same. Or it might be because I've got the same accent. Or we feel the same. So for those of us that are more feel based, kinesthetically, my hair texture is the same as my little brother's, you know, my birth brother who I've now found. But
Mm.
my mother and father both had the finest, wispiest hair. And
Mm.
again, it's just like, well, your hair doesn't feel the same as my hair. And you know that from tiny,
Mm.
don't you? That
Yeah.
doesn't feel like this stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and then there was gestures, and the way my mother moved, my adopted mother, the way she moved her hands used to drive me bananas. I couldn't stand it because she moved in a very different way to me, and that helped me know I don't belong to you.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean, there was
I
all that.
do know. I do know. I think there's,
Yeah,
it's the thoughts that we have that people are unaware of growing up.
yeah,
There's so much of it, isn't there?
yeah,
Physicality, personality, what you're saying, movement. That was one of the biggest things that struck me when I met my mother. I'm not taking up your space, I'll hand it back to you.
oh
But
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I recognized it instantly, what you're talking about there with movement. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
fascinating.
And my little brother now, I'll do a gesture. I don't know what it might be, and he'll go, "She does that. She does that. You just look like her then." And so it helps him and I belong to each other because
Yeah,
he can see his mum in me. She's dead
yeah,
now, by the way,
yeah,
folks.
yeah, yeah.
But he can see his mum in me in appearance, in gestures, in the way I operate, and I remind him of his mum, and that binds us and lets
Yeah,
us
so
feel that
that
we belong
helps your
together.
sense of belonging with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then there's things like core values.
Hmm.
I think my birth family had got the same core values as me,
Hmm.
whereas my adopted family just did not. you
Hmm.
know, and daft things like colours. The way we
Hmm.
all got a skin tone. Well,
Yeah.
my adopted mum's house was all white, minimalist. There was no pictures, no coziness, no ornaments. It was like a blooming show house, but it was all pristine white. And that really works for some people, but it didn't work for me, you know.
Mm.
And I went to my birth mother's house for the first time, and it was like I'd come home.
Really?
Her colours were my colours. This house is all yellows, oranges,
That's fascinating.
because I'm an
Yeah.
autumn
You're
skin
just
tone.
drawn to
Yeah, and the
certain things
minute,
through your
and
genetics.
yeah, and same she had ornaments. She was drawn to the set. I like little things, whereas my mum, my adopted family would have the odd big thing.
Yeah.
Whereas, birth mother had lots of little things of
Yeah.
the same colour. And I walked
Mm.
in, I was like, oh, home,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I felt I belonged there straight away.
Hmm.
So
Amazing.
all that stuff. And it's feeling like we belong to that tribe, isn't it? And what I
Yeah.
love when adoptees get together is we feel that we belong.
Oh my goodness, isn't that just the biggest thing that we've said whenever
Oh,
we've all been in
man.
a room together and it's tangible, that sort of sense of relaxing.
Yeah, yeah. I've got, a client who'd not really met adoptees before and got
Mm.
involved with a small group, and it's a completely different feeling to any feeling she's ever had before.
Yeah.
And for those of you that haven't been to any of our retreats, when we all get in a room together, everyone's kind of like filling up a bit because like, this feels
Mm.
different.
It's huge.
Yeah, yeah, it really does. And I think I felt that I didn't belong due to some of those factors I've said. And things they would say, like because my parents had a Geordie accent, I used to say, I'm a Geordie because I wanted to belong. And they'd say, no, you're not. You're not a Geordie. You're a Brummie. And then I'd cry and they didn't understand why I was crying
Mm.
because what I was hearing was, you don't belong with us. And just that little aside, oh, no, you're not a Geordie. You're a Brummie. And I was like, I'm not, I'm a Geordie because I wanted to belong to that family. So it's
Yeah.
the way they just say these things that we know means you don't
Flippantly.
belong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that belonging piece has haunted me all my life because I work really hard at belonging,
Yeah.
whether that's friendship groups now or organisation. I work really hard to belong, make best efforts, muck in, volunteer, help, keep in touch. I really make sure that I belong,
Yeah.
you
It's
know,
fascinating, isn't
and
it?
I'm
How we
quite
adapt.
triggered if I get a message that you don't belong. If there's kind of, well, we're
Mm.
doing this and I'm not included, or that's really triggering because
Yeah.
my translation is you don't belong.
Yeah.
So that need for belonging plays out,
It just goes
across
back to
life.
what's all the stuff that's all invisible again, isn't it? Is, you're feeling a whole bunch of stuff that no one else is aware of.
No, and never gets said out loud because people think you were nuts, you
Mhm.
know. But I know if friends ever go off and maybe meet for coffee or meet for lunch and I'm not invited, I'm like, I don't belong in that group.
Mm.
It triggers me much more than anyone else might think, oh, great, they're getting together. But there's another message for me,
Mm.
which is about maybe I don't belong with them then. Maybe they don't think I belong to this group.
Yeah, so you interpret that through your own experience and lens.
Yeah, and I think I've learned that now. I've learned that that's
Mm.
a trigger and I can calm it down very quickly now and go, oh, there's the belonging worry, don't worry, and
Yeah,
can calm the inner child that's going,
yeah,
oh, they don't think I
yeah,
belong.
yeah.
Um, and I know what it is now, but it still leaps up,
Mm.
you know. So belonging to things is really important for me. Like I belong to all sorts of things, more things you can shake a stick at. And I belong to a meditation group and I belong to a philosophy group and I belong to a film group and so the joining of things and being part of stuff
Yeah.
actively feels really important.
That's fascinating because I don't
Mm.
think that's how it plays out for everyone. I think it
No.
depends that you've obviously got personality that is quite sociable as well.
Yes,
And so
for
that sort
sure.
of feeds into that sense of needing to belong that I think other people take themselves outside of that
Yes,
so that they don't risk the rejection.
yes, yes.
Anything.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like you said, that's my
Yeah. And
response
that's
to
just
not
the thing. We're
belonging.
all so different, aren't
So
we?
I'm kind of scrabbling to belong, like
Yeah.
kind of
Is that
really,
exhausting?
yeah, absolutely. I'm frazzled, with trying to
Yeah.
belong, you know,
Yeah.
and
But you've
trying
got
to make
it.
sure
I
it
mean,
fits.
because you've got
And
your identity now, so you that
yeah,
must be less. That must feel less
oh, for sure. Yeah, I
like
won't be joining anything
intense.
else.
Yeah, doesn't sound like you've got the time.
No, but I know it's been like a frantic scrabble,
Yeah.
to feel as if I belong in
Hmm.
places, and making sure that I do, that I fit, and all that
Yeah.
adapting we do to make sure that we fit.
Yeah.
That it's taken a lifetime to grow out of.
Mm.
You're right.
Yeah. Well, it
I'm
does, doesn't
just
it? Because
the
they're
last,
survival mechanisms.
yeah, probably since my mid 50s, I've started to relax back, but I'm still in quite a lot of things. So yeah, belonging's massive, isn't it? Yeah. And how was that for you?
How was that for me? I think that was huge for me. And we talked a little bit about the physicality, the personality. Those were massive for me and my family. I mean, we're all British, right? So we haven't got those extra layers of hurdle and obstacles that
Yeah.
some have to navigate. But, my family, all three, because my sister wasn't adopted, so she came along later. And all three of them had very similar colouring,
Oh
personalities, skin tone. Obviously, they all had jet black hair.
gosh.
And I
Oh
was like
wow.
white blonde, pale.
Wow.
And they're all quite sort of solid people. Whereas
Right.
I was just like really tiny, like really small bones and like white hair. And I talk about this quite a
Gosh.
lot, but I remember one particular situation where weirdly we were all at an airport waiting to go somewhere, probably on holiday, I think, and they were all sat next to each other on this bank of chairs, and I was
Yeah.
on the other side looking at them, and it just hit me like I feel like I don't belong. And it was
Gosh.
just that moment of they're all inside this circle and I'm on the outside of that. And so that again, they weren't aware of me having that feeling. How could they have been? And I
Yeah.
think this is the big thing. It's huge. And so I would often like study my family's physical features, like their fingers and their toes, and then just kind of look at mine and be like, this is definitely not where, like, I don't feel like I belong here. And this is that particular aspect, of course, they didn't do anything to make that
Yes.
worse. That's just a process that I was going through, and I mean that continues to this day. What made me laugh was as you get older, people would say, "Oh, don't you look like your dad?" I'd be like,
Yeah.
"What? Really?
Yeah.
How?"
Yeah.
People just say stuff, don't they, for the
Yes.
sake of it
I got the
sometimes, and
same.
you just think, "Oh my goodness."
Yeah.
But then when I met my biological mother, we were so physically similar
Oh
that it
really?
was just an instant, like, oh my goodness, it hit me. It absolutely hit me like a ton of bricks. Like I said, with some of the mannerisms, obviously I'd never seen her, but she moved in the exact same way that I did. Her hands, she speaks in the same way that I do, with very, very
Wow.
similar way of speaking. And just physically, it was crazy how similar we are. And so that was a massive, huge moment. But then that links back to the last talk that we had, which is about reunion, because then you
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can go
Yeah.
into your biological mother's home and feel like that's home. What then happens when the reunion kind of doesn't go in the way that your hopes and dreams or fantasies that we all have had, or most of us have had growing up about our biological family? Like, what
Mm.
if that then doesn't play out? So you find that sense of belonging temporarily,
Yeah.
momentarily, and then
Yeah.
suddenly you feel cast back out again
Mm. Oh, and it did feel like
because the
that.
relationship breaks down.
Yeah.
It's
It was
so
tough.
multi-layered, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And
But
that
yeah,
feeling of belonging didn't really last.
no.
But it
I
does
mean,
with my brother and sister. But
the
yeah.
reunion's so complex. I know we've covered that, but I think,
Yeah.
well, belonging is a universal human need, isn't it? It's a
Yeah.
survival structure. We all need to belong to something, and it
Mm.
gives us strength and it gives us survival skills and all of that. So it's kind of in our like built into us.
For sure.
So that struggle is absolutely huge.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think I've probably gone to some extent the opposite way to you.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I know a lot of people I work with, who are mixed. I think personality probably does come into that. But for
Yeah.
me, when I talk about my own personal survival skills or my survival adaptations, if you want to call it that, that solitude is what kept me safe. And I think
Yeah.
that's followed me. So for me, the safe space, or how I feel the most safe, is bigger. It's more prevalent in my life than needing to belong to groups and things, because I find that in me now. I mean,
Yes.
it took a while, a
Yeah.
really long time. But yeah, as with all these things, it's just interesting how these sort of big themes can kind of just take different paths as we
Mm.
grow into ourselves and understand more about ourselves, our identities and everything like that.
Yeah. For
Isn't
sure.
it?
Yeah.
It's huge. I think belonging is. so big. And, it's hard, isn't it? Because people are very outspoken as well about their own beliefs and things like that. And I don't know whether it's more of an empathy thing or whether it's just because I have felt that I haven't belonged for most of my life. But sometimes when I see people speak out about certain issues and things like that, I my first thoughts go to the people that are made to feel unwelcome and like
Yes.
that sense of belonging is not for them. And my heart goes out to them because that is really
Yeah,
tough. And yeah, it's just part of the human condition, though, isn't it, Jilly, that we're battling with.
for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah,
It is. Yeah,
that's my take on identity and belonging. I mean, we could talk about these. It's one of the biggest themes. It is one of many tens of themes, hundreds of themes that we have to battle with, but it's the one that follows us all the way
yeah.
through,
Oh, for sure.
right from the moment, right
Yeah,
that we are conscious, right to the
yeah.
end, isn't it?
And I think I might have shared this one with you before, but because my adopted mom was a very different body shape to me, I'm
Mm.
more skinny and tall, well, was, and she was small and round, and she
Right.
had these massive knockers, and I didn't.
Yeah, you said.
Yeah. And so I had a body image that I wasn't a good enough girl as well, because you meant to have big
Okay.
knockers, and I didn't have, to me. So
What,
I,
as a what that big knockers are more appealing?
yeah, that's what a normal woman looks like. That's how you should look,
Oh,
you know.
okay.
That's how you should be, because
Yeah.
you're meant to be like your mum, sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, it's
And
another
then,
fracture, isn't it?
yeah, and then it gives you a body image problem,
Yeah,
that I wasn't
I can see
confident,
that.
you
Yeah,
know.
I can see
And
that.
then I meet my birth sister, and her body shape's like mine. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
so that's all
I
right
think
then.
that's
Yeah,
it's just massive, isn't it? We haven't necessarily, I think we talked about it a bit last time, but this idea of it's almost becomes like an obsession, not quite an unhealthy obsession, or
mm,
maybe for some, but I remember feeling like I just really wanted to see somebody
yeah,
that I had shared genes with, like,
yes,
GENES,
yes,
not the other
yeah,
type of
yeah,
genes.
yeah,
And it was so like stark for me, feeling physically different.
yeah,
And there was a hell of a lot of other differences as well, I might add. But that was the one that just kept like coming back to me all the
yeah,
time growing up. And so it got to the point where I just really felt like I just needed to see that. It was the only thing that was going to make sense for
yeah,
me to kind of make sense of myself.
mm, yeah,
And it did,
definitely.
and it did actually, despite the relationship not necessarily going, who knows, they never go the way you expect.
No, no,
But that was a huge moment for me, really
yeah,
was. Mm.
I completely agree. My
Yeah,
first person I ever met that looked like me was my brother. I didn't meet my birth
yeah,
first. I met my little
yeah,
brother,
yes,
and I've never been so overwhelmed in my life over anything.
yeah,
I was talking to a client about it, and we were saying it's like every exam you've ever sat in your life all in one. You
yeah.
know, it was like every exam, every driving test, every nerve-wracking thing you've ever done in your life all rolled into
Mm.
one. And
Mm.
seeing myself in him was
Yeah,
the most overwhelming experience of
yeah,
my life.
it really is. Yeah, I
Really
can
was. I was
completely relate.
shaking, absolutely shaking.
Yeah,
You know, I
it's
remember,
huge, isn't it? And there's
yeah,
something, I mean, not to kind of like this isn't to cast aspersions on most people, but it is something that most people don't ever have to think about or
no,
even think about, and certainly wouldn't think about how important it is for us
yeah,
that moment of recognition
oh,
of
it-
yourself in someone else is absolutely massive.
yeah. It was the most thrilling, exciting, nerve-wracking, overwhelming, terrifying thing all in one.
Yeah,
To see
yeah,
myself in someone else.
I can relate.
As you say, so someone looks like me on the planet.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah,
that big, isn't it?
yeah, yeah,
It's really that big. Anyway, so, well, I guess as usual, we could talk for hours and hours and hours
yeah. We
about all of
could
these
actually.
things.
There's a lot more bits and pieces in there
Yeah,
to that.
yeah. Well, I
Um,
just wanted to hand back over to you then to close because you've got some really brilliant news and upcoming stuff that you can just say a little bit about.
yes, thank you. So yes, good news, folks. We are in the process of educating counsellors about adoption and adoptee issues so that when adoptees go for therapy, they're not meeting with a blank wall, somebody who doesn't get it, who's not informed at all. So, to that end, in November, we have a 2 day training event for counsellors in London, and it's being run with PAC UK, who are one of the leading adoption charities. There's also a 2 day course happening in Leeds.
Mhm.
So if anybody out there is interested, if you're a qualified counsellor, those
Yeah.
trainings are happening in Leeds and London.
There's been so much
UK.
demand, hasn't there?
Oh yes, the London one sold out really quickly. We had
Yeah.
to put more
Yeah.
places.
I'm really not surprised.
Yeah, and we've got waiting lists, and we are running some more. So there
Yeah.
will be more dates for counsellor training. For it's called Working with Adopted Adults in Counselling Practice. You'll find the
Amazing.
details on the Education tab. No, Professionals. There's a tab that says Professionals, and a drop-down menu says Education.
Mhm.
And so that we're running the next one in 2026, and there'll be certainly one happening in London, hopefully one in the north. And coming up on October the 24th, 25, in Leeds, there is a free adopted adults gathering being run by PAC UK in Leeds, and it's free to come. There's a free lunch, um, and there'll be little bits of input by myself and Tanya, who also works for PAC. And so, if anybody's got the chance to get themselves to Leeds for a lovely adoptee
Mhm.
gathering, it's 11 till 3 on Friday, the 24th of October.
Perfect.
And we are in talks about what we might do in 2026 as well. Um,
Yes.
and also, our Lara here has another final bit of news to tell you about upcoming book.
Oh, the book. Yeah. I wondered whether we were going to mention about, we're still trying to get our heads around dates for next year's retreats, but we will keep you
Yeah,
all posted with that.
yeah,
And yes, the book is nearing publication, and it's taken a lot of effort and head down, just not coming up for breath for quite a long time. But yes, initial feedback has been very, very positive, and hopefully it will be a very valuable resource for adopted people trying to make sense of themselves, of their journey, of their identity, and multiple other issues that we have to come up against. So I will announce when that is due to be published and available to buy. So yeah, but maybe we're going to chat about certain bits of it, aren't we, next time?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll link into
Perfect.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So good luck with your training. Well
Thank
done.
you. Yeah,
So
can't wait.
brilliant. Such brilliant news. And yeah, thank you everyone for coming along. And hopefully you found something useful and beneficial to yourself and your own path through your life today. And we'll be back with the next one. Take
Take good
care.
care.
Bye.
Bye.